That business ended up costing me around about $1.2 million over 24 months. I worked it out about being about $1 a minute, asleep or awake for 2 years.
How did you get up from that setback?
I did what I call asset stripping. I sold everything that wasn't bolted down that we didn't need. And then I just found a buyer who'd buy the brand and the business. And I got myself absolved of that situation before it really tanked me.
Dominic Sutton, a Kiwi entrepreneur, founded Pumpt Advertising, one of the leading independent advertising agencies in New Zealand's direct marketing space during its height.
He grew it to 13 staff into a multi-million-dollar company.
Working for major brands like Habitual Fix and Mad Max.
Now launched StockTrim, a SaaS company for inventory forecasting for small and medium-sized businesses worldwide.
We got the actual ad agency to about 5 million, but then I bought a publication called Best Buy, another company, and that was added at another 5 million. So it's about
10 million.
And we're selling it to small, medium-sized businesses all around the world as a SaaS application in the cloud. They fall in love with ideas or concepts. I don't know anything about this business, but it looks awesome. I want to be in it. You're in dangerous territory right there. I had these days, what I call black hole days. Kids these days might call it depression or anxiety. I just call them black hole days.
Do you ever feel like, what am I doing? I need to go and get a job.
I didn't start StockTrim with the idea of making money. So if you're going to start a SaaS business, you've got to be prepared to lump it for a while. Don't be afraid of the risk, just...
Quick one, Mina here. Thank you for watching this episode. I appreciate you. Thank you for all your support. One thing that you can do for me is to please hit the subscribe button below. I promise you that if you hit subscribe, I'm going to work hard to make sure that my episodes are really good, that will get better and better. So, do we have a deal? Okay, back to the episode. I'm going to start with a rather intriguing question and quite intense. What are the biggest mistakes that you've made in business?
Wow. I've made a fair few, to be honest. Probably the one that sticks out and I talk about the most is they mostly relate to getting into areas that I imagine will be amazing, but I just don't have the experience and depth of knowledge in that area. And one of those situations was when I had my ad agency, and I still have it, I bought a client's business, which is a toy importing and wholesaling business. I've always been in services, selling service, B2B services, right? And this is a product business, importing, wholesaling, and retailing of children's toys. So quite different. But because I've always worked with retailers and selling and doing their marketing, I looked at this business as an opportunity. I didn't think it was being run as well as it could be. And I looked at it like a house. Oh, just buy it, renovate the kitchen, the bathroom, give it a lick of paint, and I can on-sell it and for a margin, so to speak. And staying with that analogy, this house had foundation issues. And I didn't discover that until I bought it. And those foundation issues mostly weren't systems, which I could easily look at. It was mostly around the inventory. So, and inventory is something that I wasn't used to dealing with because I'd only dealt with services.
Right,
So that business, to cut a long story short, that business ended up costing me around about $1.2 million over 24 months. I worked it out about being about $1 a minute, asleep or awake, for 2 years. And I learned a lot in that stage. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about my relationships. I learned a lot about...
what did you learn about yourself?
That I was more resilient than I thought, and that you're good as long as you just wake up and just keep doing small steps, making small plans, just writing things to do today on a piece of paper. If you think about the whole problem and the thing that's... Because it nearly pulled down my other businesses as well. Thankfully, the bank was sort of generally understanding, but I ended up slowly, methodically walking backwards out of that business. And it wasn't the end of me, but it could have been if I had a different approach to the situation in front of me. So I learnt that I can keep a cool head in crisis, which I'm happy about. I learnt that even a huge mistake can be a life lesson, which I will never make again. I would have liked to think I could learn that lesson by going to a course, but probably not. So yeah, it's a life lesson, and we're all going to die one day, and it was an adventure.
If you get into that situation again, how different are you going to act?
Well, first starts is around due diligence. Don't fall in love with the concept of having a business or owning a business, and skip all the core details around the fundamentals of a business. I did have an accounting firm help me with my due diligence, and they did raise some warnings about the inventory, but they didn't reinforce them with me. And me being an entrepreneur, I was so in love with the idea of taking this business and renovating it and making it way better, because it was pretty crappy at the time. I thought I could do this a lot better. I jumped over a few core details. I should never have bought the inventory at cost. I should have bought it at fractions of cents in a dollar, because a lot of it was aged. It was what we call slob stock, and as a result, I've got a business that helps with that now. And so there was something that came out of the ashes of that.
How did you get up from that setback? How did you literally get it up?
How did I actually
survive
physically? I started out by removing all the costs that I could. I started out by having very frank discussions and honest discussions, and being a good person with my landlords, and they thankfully were on board with what I told them. I was reasonable with them rather than hiding things, and they could understand that. They'd been in business themselves, or were business people. I did what I call asset stripping. I sold everything that wasn't bolted down that we didn't need, just for cash flow. And then I started talking to other people in the business and tried to see if they would want some of my stuff. And then I just found a buyer who would buy the brand and the business. And I got myself absolved of that situation before it really tanked me.
Look, what are the biggest mistakes business owners make today?
I think, like I said, they fall in love with ideas or concepts. We're all human beings with emotions, and we're influenced by what we see, and we think sometimes we're missing out on something, or we need to be doing this, without thinking the fundamentals, the practicalities of what they're trying to do. The other big mistake, and this is from my own lessons, is not understanding the structure of businesses and the differences between being shareholders and directors, having a proper shareholders agreement, understanding a market properly. In advertising, which I've got a background in, you see lots of business models, and some of them look really cool, right? And like, wow, those guys are kicking it, right? I would like to be in that. They know what they're doing, and no business is as easy as it looks. If you're looking at somebody going, wow, they're killing it, and they're actually probably good operators running a good business, and they've got depth of knowledge. You're sitting there on the outside saying, I don't know anything about this business, but it looks awesome, I want to be in it. You're in dangerous territory right there. So do a little bit more DD on due diligence on what you're looking at. That's my thing. The good thing about getting older and a bit wiser is you get a little bit more slower to, a little bit more guarded, I suppose. When I was younger, I started my first company at 28, and you're sort of suitably commercially naive, and that's a good thing and a bad thing, depending on how you look at it. Being commercially naive about an opportunity means you get into it in the first place, and there's probably opportunities I took up that I wouldn't take up now, but I made them work because I just had to make it work. These days, with a bit more behind you, you go, no, I'm not doing that. That's not gonna work for me.
Could any 28-year-old listening now be able to be ready to start a business and not fail? Is it even possible
to start a business and not fail?
Yeah, at 28. I mean, some people are obviously more savvier than others, but I can only imagine if you are at 28, you're going to make lots of mistakes.
Yeah, the good thing is you got time on your side to recover from your mistakes. The sad thing about starting a business when you're 60 or 50 is that, I mean, there's lots of entrepreneurs in their 50s. You make different mistakes, and you have different time frames on how to fix those. a 28-year-old might start a business without an exit plan or thinking about what they're trying to build towards
Right.
exit. They might just go, this is going to be amazing and I'm going to build an income for myself.
How-
A 50-year-old's probably thinking about who is going to buy this business right from the start because I need to have an exit. And that's a healthy way of looking at it, starting a business.
So this is a new concept, is thinking about the end before you start.
Yeah.
And for a 28-year-old and a 50-year-old, that applies both, right? Or what is your advice if someone is 28, 30, even 35, wanting to start a business? And what are some of the things that they should be thinking about first before they even start? And this could be like an entrepreneur, an SaaS, SaaS, or
Well, the saying that you're talking about is
or a marketing agency like you've done.
Well, it's begin with the end in mind, and I've always had that right from the start. I think I learnt that way back when before I even had my business. Begin with the end in mind. I have these sort of one-liners for myself, and you need to do that. It's like and that helps to structure how you want to build that business. I mean,
What were you thinking about when you started like this, your advertising agency? Because I believe that you started it and you grew it to around how much?
Well, we got the actual ad agency to about 5 million, but then I bought a publication called Best Buys and from another company, and that was added at another 5 million to us. So it was about combined.
It's about
10
million.
Mm.
Yeah. So you started that, grew it, and I think was it over 7 years? You were talking about making that work, and you stepped back.
Yeah.
If someone wants to do the same, how do they get on it?
Well, yeah, you need to grow. You can't grow a business. This is obviously when people first start a business, they're the specialists. They know everyone. They've got the contacts, especially in a service, B2B sales business. You need other people to scale a business, especially a services business. And, that was a journey. I was lucky because previous to starting my agency, I had been managing other people as well. So I'd learned some management skills, care of an employed relationship. So when I started my business, it was just me, but then I was quickly knew that I had to get other people to help me to scale because you can't do everything yourself. And what I learned when I was trying to step out of the business and work more on the business and in the business is it's better to hire people for the role before you want them to go into it than straight into a role. Because then you can, let's say you want a general manager running one of your businesses, it's better to hire them as a senior salesperson and observe their behaviour in that lower role on a lower pay packet probably, with an incentive if they do the right things to move into general management after a given period of time. Plonking someone straight into a general manager's role, you don't know them, you've interviewed them a few times, you've got some references, put them in charge of one of your businesses, you're kind of like, you're throwing all your money on black, really.
Is that true? Is it sort of a bit of an experience there for you?
Yeah, multiple times.
So you had,
and if you speak to any other business owner when they're talking about stepping away from the business, there's probably talking about throwing all your money on black. There's probably around a 50% failure rate. Some people have got it down pat because they've probably had experiences where they've learnt from that. Again, you could go to a course about stepping away from your business and how to hire a general manager, but the facts of the matter is people are people, and you're the CEO or you're the founder running a business and you're trying to give somebody else your baby to run. There's issues.
It's true.
There's a number of things that have to happen from both sides, and that is a human dynamic, and human beings, emotions, objectives, feelings, all that sort of stuff. It can go terribly wrong if you're not clear about a number of things and your business structure is not right as well. So I learned some lessons. I've had some excellent successes with hiring people. I don't know how many people I've hired over the years. It's probably well into a couple of hundred over different businesses. And yeah, I think I'm better at that than the average, but I am definitely not 100% on it. And my advice to anybody who's trying to delegate is to get somebody into the role before you fully secure them in it and give them all the responsibilities. So let's see what they're like as an operator, see if you can work together. that sort of stuff. You can't test people out in a role. You have to sort of put them in, but you can put them in a role before it.
It's really valuable advice, I think. Going back to the steps that when you were starting your business and thinking, okay, if I'm 28 years old, I need to think about the end.
Yeah.
What did you think about when you were 28? And did you think about the end back in the day?
No, I didn't.
No.
When
did you start thinking about the end in mind?
Probably in my mid-30s. There's something, I think it's guys and girls, but particularly for guys, as you head towards 40, I don't know what it is about 40, that is a tipping point.
For what?
Well, where are you in life? You know, up until about that point, you go, I'm building. I sort of separate life into 3 categories, learning, building, and enjoying, I suppose. I mean, you can enjoy your life right through, but, you're building towards something. We're not all here to just work forever. I mean, well, a lot of us enjoy working, but there's a reason you work. There's a reason you build businesses. And you've got to be clear about why you're doing that. But when I started at 28, I was just trying to... The reason I started my agency was I separated from my first wife, and I had to pay child maintenance, and you pay that out of your post-tax income. And I was looking at my income from my pretty good job that I had, and I was like, I can't buy a house. I had to sell my existing house. I can't buy a house on this money that's left. So the only way to do it is to take an even bigger risk and go out and just try to build up a higher income. So I was actually, like most 28-year-olds I'd suggest, the initial incentive was to make more money than just working for the man, so to speak.
That's the whole point of getting in business.
Yeah. That when you're 28.
Yeah.
There's purpose.
But any time of the year, any time of your lifespan, if you're starting a business, the point is that you make more money than what you were doing 9 to 5.
Yeah, to get ahead I think is the term. So, and because of the way that my mind is structured, and mine's definitely not structured the same way as everybody else's, I don't have a problem with risk. So I was quite happy to put myself on the firing line to get ahead. Some people aren't. They go, whoa, this is going to be too hard. I respect those people. Sometimes they're not built for the risk. And so if you're going to start a business, you have to be prepared to, your neck is on the line. You have to pay bills. If you don't get out and sell and you don't do the things that sometimes you don't like doing, then, the bills aren't going to get paid and people are going to be coming after you. It's not your boss anymore, or not your company. It's you personally, basically, because often you are having to guarantee things like leases and PAYE and things like that. IRD wants their chunk of change too.
It's very expensive if you don't pay it as well.
It is, indeed.
If you had to think about your businesses, all the businesses that you've started, which one really stood out for you the most, that you really found it inspiring and rewarding to have?
Well, I've had some smaller businesses, and my 2 main businesses has been Pumpt, which I started right from Pumpt Advertising, which I started from 28, and I've still got it nearly 22 years later. But that has been where all my lessons have been. And it's helped me to build my lifestyle that I have now, and allow.
And this is the advertising company.
Yeah. So that's been, I built lots of relationships and my networks, and it's been my sort of life lesson, I suppose, in business, and I've learned lots of things through that. And on the side, I was entrepreneuring along, so I bought other businesses. I bought that toy business. I bought Best Buys. I started some other little online businesses here and there and sold some. So that was, it's hard to think of the whole 22 years, but sometimes we're real fun. Sometimes we're just scary. And
what's the scariest moment that you've had?
Well, in the first few years, probably the first year, there was, and this is probably good for your listeners, I called them, I gave them a name. There's these days where when you leave a job, you know, I was on good money for a young guy and a company car, and you leave a job and you got no income. And I was doing a publication. It was called Smart Saver. It's like a little coupon booklet. And I had obligations to print that each month and put it into letterboxes all across Auckland. So I had print bills, and I had to sell a certain number of pages to be break even, and then everything after that was profit for me, right? So there's some months where I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to sell anything here. I'm going to have 5 pages out of 24 sold, and I'm going to like be paying to be here. I started Pumpt with my last paycheck, about after tax, probably about $6,000. So sometimes I didn't even have the money in my account to pay for the bills that I was running up. So I had to make this work. So I had these days, what I call black hole days. Kids these days might call it depression or anxiety. I just call them black hole days, where I'd go back and I'd say to my girlfriend at the time, I was like, oh my God, I'm in deep trouble here. And it would last for 24 hours sometimes, but I just kept going in and kept making calls.
You just make calls, that's how you do it.
And then your luck changes. Somebody says, yep, come in. I had one customer that walked in, spoke to him, he said, love it, and he wrote me a check while I was still literally in his offices.
You wouldn't call that luck, would you?
Well, I still call it creating your own luck. So is it luck? Well, I just kept going. And, you know, you hear these stories about, you know, when you're in the, just don't stop. If your luck's down, don't stop, because you're sort of like stopped there. Just keep moving and your luck will change. So I still call it creating your own luck. And yeah, it's by design or because, but yeah, the worst thing you can do is stall in the middle of a loop, you know. So, and then some days, you know, I literally get a phone call and somebody I spoke to 3 months ago, yeah, we're ready to book and we want to book 6 pages. And it was like, I would come home and I was thinking, life's great.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So in the early stages, it was very like this. Yeah. As you built the business and you had team and your revenue started being more consistent and you built out your business model, you didn't have those same days, and they didn't affect you so much if your revenue was down. It's like, I'm going to make it up next month and things like that. So, but those early days were very dangerous because, you know, I literally would look at back in the day, the paper at the recruitment ads going, I could do that, while I was running my own business. It's like, what are you doing? Yeah.
Do you ever feel like, what am I doing? I doubt I need to go and get a job, or
that's what I literally was looking at sales managers and general managers of companies ads and significant salary going, that'd be nice to have a consistent. So when for anybody who's thinking of starting a business, you are going to have times like that. It's not going to be all gravy all the way through. Like, this is, you know, and you're going to have the self-doubts, and you're going to have imposter syndrome. People go, wow, you're really killing it. And deep down, you know, maybe you're not. And how you deal with that and reconcile that in your own head. So, but you just have to keep going.
That's the whole point. And for people, it's difficult to keep going. I think that's a challenge. How did you keep going? Just do it.
I've just wrote lists. One thing I do, and I've mentioned this recently, and I've still had crises up till recently but in different flavors, right?
Yeah.
And one thing I do is that helps me psychologically is I make a plan. So as soon as I create a plan, you're looking forward, and by looking forward, you can see an outcome, and it makes you feel better. You're still in the middle of the crises, but you've made a plan, and that plan may change, but the mere fact of creating that plan helps you psychologically meander through it. If you're sitting there just going, oh my God, my life is terrible, this is absolutely turned to shit right now, and you haven't got a plan, you're just going to sit there and wallow in that mess, and you're not going to be able to climb your way out of it. So, and that plan may set the plan and then just write a list of sequential things to do, and just do one thing. It's like, what's the saying? How do you eat an elephant? You know, one spoonful at a time. So
you just have to sit and write it down. Do you find writing it down on a piece of paper is
I write it on a piece of paper.
Engaging to your brain?
Old school. I know there's all sorts of to-do lists online and stuff like that, but it's not the same. I literally write on a piece of paper, and I actually screw up the piece of paper and throw it away. And if I have to repeat that on the next day, I do it, because I'm just from repeating something too many times, it's like, man, you got to get this sorted. Because sometimes you'll avoid doing the tough things, and you sort of have to have a self-talk to yourself and say, right, why aren't you doing this thing? And you have to sort of challenge your own story, challenge your own. Why are you avoiding a task? Is it because, what's the underlying reason for it?
What have you found for you, like when you've avoided tasks and had to reflect and go, actually, this is why I haven't been doing it?
Yeah. I hate procrastinating, but I do it like everybody else on certain things. And I think deep down, I don't believe... I know that if I don't do it, it's just not going to get any better. There has been some things where you look at something and you don't always have to take action on something. Inaction is actually a choice, to do nothing with something. Whether that's an email where someone's giving you a problem. I used to think I had to react to that. Not reacting at all was actually an option, and that's, you've got to remember that. But if it's something that's going to affect your business and it's just going to fester or rot, you're better off to do the difficult thing now rather than let it get 10 times worse later on. So whether that's a difficult conversation, and if you've got a 28-year-old now who's used to sending texts and emails, I'm terrible on text and email. I sound aggressive.
On text and email?
Yeah, I'm a little bit old school, so I haven't figured out the emojis thing too well.
Are you a phone call person?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Face-to-face premium.
Oh, cool.
Phone call better because you can assess.
You could assess, there's a lot of emotional connection or deeper understanding and building of trust. I think I'm the same as well.
Yeah, I think that's the same with everybody, but if you're under a certain age, you'll think you can run your whole life for text and Slack and
it's true though. It's what you can't.
There's situations that inflame when they don't need to be, because you can understand someone's tone or someone's expression, and you can use the skills you've learnt over the years to adjust to that situation.
Yeah, communication.
Yeah.
It's a lot of misunderstanding through emails, and you'd think, I was really clear. You didn't get that?
Well, a life skill I've learned, and I taught my team this, is like sending one email to somebody, if it's not responded to, it's not communicated.
Yeah.
So it's only communicated when somebody comes back to you and acknowledges that.
Yeah.
So I say to them, if a client sends you instruction or asks you to do something, don't just go and do it without, you always respond saying, I've got it.
I'm on it.
Yeah, leave it with me for 2 days. That's a real hack.
It
is. Sounds so obvious, but people don't do it, and you're just left there going, has this person heard me?
Where is this at?
Do I have to chase them? Why am I having to chase this person? But all you have to do is say, hey, thank you, got it, leave it with me, or ask a question if you're unclear. And you see these people, you send them a message or something like that, and you chase them up 5 days later. Did you get that message? Yeah, I got it.
Absolutely. And you get a permission to take a bit longer as well if you're a bit tied up.
Clarify time frame. Say, hey, you've asked me to do this. What time frame are you working to on this, and I'll try to achieve it. Oh, it's all good. You can do it in a week.
Yeah.
And the message may have initially looked like they wanted it done straight away.
Yeah.
But just say, yes, I've got it. I'll get it to you within 5 days or something.
Yeah.
And then do it. And if there's a delay, email them and say, hey, look, I've had an issue. It's going to be 1 day more. Is that fine? And then the person will usually 9 times out of 10 say, yes, that's perfectly fine. Or they might say, hey, you know what? I've actually got to present this evening. Can you please? And then you're very clear on what the expectations are. And a lot of people communicate without being very clear on their expectations.
Yeah. And I'd love for that message to really get honed down on people and for them to start really using it, because I love it. And so I'm glad that you mentioned it. I was thinking about a question in terms of how is it, in New Zealand context, there are a lot of businesses. New Zealand is made of small businesses. If someone is looking at investing into a business or starting a business, and they're maybe 20s or 30s, what kind of a business would they be? I don't know, it's a hard question because it really depends on what they enjoy. But what are some of the niches in New Zealand that are doing really well, growing really well, that perhaps people want to invest in or start a business in?
Well, I've got my main business now that I'm spending all my time in is a SaaS business, a B2B.
Tell me about your business.
Oh, so StockTrim it's called. It does, from my lessons from the toy business, I really saw an opportunity with not just an inventory management system. An inventory management system records what your inventory is. And we had one of those, but that didn't help because what we were doing is we didn't understand what to order, right? Just because you've got 500 widgets, do we need 500 more? Do we need less? So you can look at so what StockTrim does is it reads all the inventory behavior and predicts how much stock to order for your next buying cycle. So you don't have overstocks, which cost you money, and you get slob stock, and then you don't get understocking, so you haven't got stuff to sell, so you don't make any money.
Right. And
then obviously the automation, being AI driven, it saves a lot of time and looking at spreadsheets and going, oh my God, what do we got here? So that's what StockTrim is. So we've started that a few years, 6 years ago. I've got a co-founder who is the tech guy. I'm not tech at all. And I saw the application. We're selling that to small, medium-sized businesses all around the world as a SaaS application in the cloud.
So you've obviously seen an opportunity there. How did you see the opportunity?
Well, because...
How did you identify it?
I felt it in the pit of my stomach because I lost so much money. I was like, oh my God, why isn't there something like this around? If I had the software, I think on my SKU count it would have cost $199 a month or something. If I could use that and save myself losing millions over the period of 2 years, I mean, sure.
Yeah.
So we now, and there are businesses out there that see the need for this and are using it. And so we're selling it mostly Australia and US, New Zealand. We've got New Zealand customers, UK, South African, and a few other countries, but biggest markets.
How different is StockTrim to any other similar program out there?
We only got in our ICP, our ideal customer profile, we've only really got 2 or 3 clear customers, and they've both been acquired by ecosystem tech partners. So we're the only independent one, which means we're kind of like system agnostic. We can integrate with any system. They've sort of tied them into their own software and sort of said, hey, nobody else can play with you guys.
So where do you see the SaaS system going on at the moment? Like, where do you see that sort of niche or industry or business opportunity?
Well, if you've got a product business, so a lot of our clients are in the consumer goods area, eat things like snack bars and all sorts of makeup and supplements and all sorts of things. I mean, a whole list of weird and wonderful customers that come through, sunglasses, all sorts. If you're in the business of moving products around and selling products, and you want to be smarter with that, then this system will help you do that. So our market is growing literally in front of us as more challenger brands come out. We don't work with guys like Coca-Cola or Sanitarium. Like, they're too big for us. They've got big systems. We work with SMEs because they are often doing DIY with a spreadsheet, and there's mistakes and errors, and 90% of spreadsheets that are used for this kind of thing have got some sort of error which will manifest itself in your inventory and cost you.
That's right.
So the automation, it's all done via an API. The automation, it removes human error and does it for you. So for companies that are wanting to scale on systems that are relatively bulletproof and without headaches, that knowledge around using cloud-based applications like that is growing, and there's some laggards there, but the market is growing in front of us. So, and our market is worldwide. It's not like we have to physically go and knock on the people's door and say, hey, you want to look at our software? We're literally, they're coming to us via the cloud.
So you started this business a year ago, or?
No, we started it as 2018 officially started scaling, so a while, 6 years, I think.
How has the journey been for you to try and start it and scale it? And what a new business mantra or model or learning did you apply to ensure that this time around it's actually going to be not bulletproof but mistake proof?
Well, I did a lot more, followed my own advice, did a lot more due diligence, although again, suitably naive around SaaS businesses. I'm not a tech guy, and I hadn't run a software business before. But I have got friends who've had software business, and they gave me a few warnings. failure rate is quite high in this industry.
It's quite expensive to start, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's very expensive. And one of my friends who's got a software business said, Dom, that software is never finished. And I was like, what? Because my thinking of having a SaaS business is we went over to Silicon Valley and looked at a whole bunch of SaaS businesses with a few of my entrepreneur friends. And I came back going, wow, I need to have a SaaS business, a subscription-based software business. Because it's like recurring revenue, scalable, global, great multiples on exit, a lot of fun. The downside is you incur a heap of cost before you even make a cent. You've got to build the software to sell, and then you sell it in small monthly increments. You don't just send somebody a bill and they pay to have the software, and that's it. So they're slowly paying for the use of your software. Yeah. So every new customer you acquire, you incur marketing costs and team costs for helping them, and just software running costs. And that's all borne in just acquiring the cost, and then you have to make, that's called a cost of acquisition, and then you have to make your money up on that, on the lifetime value of that customer. And and then there's things like churn. So if that customer churns like 3 months later because they go, oh, I'm not using it or something like that, you're in the hole. So you got to not just have to be able to acquire that customer,
keep them.
You also have to keep them. And
is it worth doing it? Obviously, you're in it, so it's worth it.
Well, I'll tell you. You asked me sort of like what are lessons from it. Thanks to me being a bit older, I didn't start StockTrim with the idea of making money. I knew it was going to be a bit of a labour of love, is probably the best way to describe it, and I was doing it for a different reason. I stepped out of my ad agency and I just sort of wandered around for a while and enjoyed myself and got fit and stuff like that, but I wanted to get back into a business. I wanted to do something that really helps small businesses, and I see the application. There was a purpose. But the other thing was I wanted to do it not just because I was going to make money. I mean, obviously that's still a thing. We'll probably make money on my exit. I'm definitely not making money on my salary, I can tell you that. But I did it for the experience and learning, and I've learned so much in the last 6 years, not just about SaaS companies and markets and stuff like that, but also about capital raising and things like that. So I did it with the intention to learn. If I had done it with the sole purpose of making my monthly salary, you just wouldn't last. So if you're going to start a SaaS business, you've got to be prepared to lump it for a while, unless you start out right from the start with a whole lot of investment money. But if you start out with a whole lot of investment money right at the start, you can get a little bit lazy too, because you've got all this money floating around.
How did you get funding?
We sort of like, we've done funding, and I did do an angel, went around, did the show around all the angel investors, yeah, and there was really good lessons in that, and I'm not naturally a great public speaker, so I had to sort of throw myself into that area and sort of face that fear, I suppose, and learned a lot about presenting and running through the metrics that investors want to see.
Any tips from your experience if someone gets up to an angel investor, if they're listening going, I actually want to raise some money now for my business and might be meeting an angel investor, what have you learned from your experience? Well,
there's stuff around public speaking and just practicing and that, but if you know your material and you're passionate about it, that overrides a lot. I can see people overthink it from a presentation point of view, but the key lesson, and I'll tell you this one lesson, and I stick with this, is that just imagine you're a guy, an investor, Bob, who goes along to an investment night, and I'm standing up there in the bright lights doing the thing, and he goes home to his wife and she goes, oh, Bob, how was the investment night tonight? And he's seen 6 or 7 presentations doing a thing. All he's going to remember about is one thing about a presentation that really excites him. So when you stand up, don't get bogged down. You haven't got time to tell people. I mean, some of these presentations we're only given 4 minutes or 5 minutes. So you don't have time to tell them all about everything about the business. You tell them maybe 3 things that are really they're gonna stand out, and hope that one of them sticks. And because whatever sticks in Bob's mind is what he's going to hold on to when he's going, am I going to invest in this business? So a lot of people get, I need to tell everybody everything about how exciting this is. No, it's a foot in the door of the mental capture of your target market.
So do you remember your pitch back in the day?
Yeah, I mean,
and what exciting thing was it? Like, how did you make sure that your pitch was remembered?
I apply it to our customers as well. I boil everything down in our business to 3 things. I like 3 things on everything.
Okay.
So, I mean, our headline is what we deliver for our customers. So, and most people can understand this. So, 3 outcomes. So, up to 40% saving in working capital, 50% reduction in stockouts, and 75% saving in time around purchasing and replenishment administration and doing PO orders. Those are 3 outcomes for a business. Any person who's not inventory related can understand, and investors can understand that too. They're delivering these 3 outcomes for quite a large target audience. Small, medium-sized businesses around the world delivering via the cloud. The market is huge. What we need is capital to reach them. We're down here in New Zealand. The good thing about running a business from New Zealand, coming back to your original question, is that now with technology, you can be anywhere. You could be on a boat running a SaaS business if you wanted to. And the good thing is we've got some good engineers down here. Time zone is not an issue unless you make it an issue. We can export to the world and earn foreign currency into New Zealand. It's a great, clean business. So I do like SaaS businesses, but they're notoriously hard to start and
So you obviously went on and had fundraisers with the angel investors, going back to that. So was that successful?
We raised within in 2020. So after about 18 months, went to a raise and raised about, not a huge amount, I think it was about $560,000 from angel groups and a couple of private investors, about 6 different groups. And then we went forward with our strategy, and then we did a little mini raise last year, just a small one, and then just right now we're doing another raise of about 550. So not a huge amount of funding. I think it adds up to around about 1.2 million over the last 6 years, and that might seem a lot to some people, but I'm still got a reasonable shareholding of my own business, which is great, because some founders, what they do is the money you raise when you're smaller is going to be if you raise a lot, it's going to be a bigger chunk of your shareholding taken away from you. So some of these guys want the money so badly they dilute themselves to the point that they're a very minor shareholder in their own business.
And that's a risk because?
It's because you're working, and because remember I said you don't earn a lot of money because you're throwing all the money into growing the business rather than your own salary and your nice car and flash house. You're not doing that when you're starting a business. You're nickel and diming to a certain extent. So if you dilute yourself too much at the start just to get money that you may not need right now, and you end up at a 2% owner of your own business, what are you actually working for? For somebody else you're working for. That's what the people who gave you that money. So you've got to be careful about capital raising, that you don't become a become a low paid, not only an employee, you become a low paid employee with a lot of stress and risk, because all the shareholders are now saying, what are you doing? Come on.
What was your strategy to not be into that position?
Don't raise money you don't need.
So you have to be really aware of what you actually need.
Yeah.
And know your business, I suppose, inside out.
Yeah, and the thing about money and investment with software companies is they do help you to go faster to market as long as you've got the right go-to-market plan, right? So speed is important in SaaS business. The danger with not slowly raising money or being bootstrapped, as they call it, which is when you're just running on your own cash flow, which is hard to do in a software company, is that you're too slow. And the companies that have got more funding than you come in and just take your market.
Yeah.
So that's a danger. So founders are always in this thing. Do I take money, go run fast with a baton, or do I be more slow, learn the lessons, better lessons, and we're more efficient with how we spend money because we're not making the same mistakes? Because if you've got a big chunk of change, let's say some of these companies that raise tens of millions and they haven't quite figured out their market fit yet, they're in danger of just wasting it on markets that just aren't going to work for them. So there's 2 arguments, and investors will know exactly what I'm talking about. So there's the rabbit or the hare type scenario. I mean, sorry, the tortoise or the rabbit type scenario. Which is better? It depends on your investment style, your style, your market. These are all fun decisions you have to make. I tell this analogy, running a SaaS business is like being in a backseat of a race car whilst a race driver is driving around trying to assemble a puzzle. And even when you think you've got the puzzle finally done, it hits a hard break on a corner and a few bits pop out and you've got to go and find them again. So there's a lot of, you can think you've got a plan all lined up, and then something left field can come out, and that can be anything from product market fit, your cost of acquisition blows out, hiring the wrong people, hiring people too early, too late, technology issues, software issues, funding issues.
There's a lot going on. Like there's a lot of risk. From what I've heard from you, there's so much risk, and yet you're still on it.
Well, we're all on this planet for, I don't know, depending on how long you last, 60 to 90, 100 years, and it's just about you just got to choose how much risk you want to put into it. And I mean, I sort of think about life like, we're all going to die. A memento mori Stoic thing. It's like we're all going to die at some point. It's like, how exciting do you want your life to be? If the excitement means risk and the odd, street fight, so to speak, from a business point of view,
or the face slap.
Kick in the pants, whatever you want to call it. Some, and I'm not extreme. There's some people who are way more extreme than me. It's a life better lived, and if you're sitting looking back, and this is what I say to anybody who's going through a real tough time, and most people understand what I'm saying. It's like, you'll look back at this one day, as long as nothing real bad happens. Like the worst thing that happens is you die as a result,
or you lose all the money and there's nothing else to do.
But money's money.
You can always make more money.
Yeah, you can always, if you've got the right mindset, you can make more money. I've been down to bare bones before, and as long as you don't give up, and as long as you don't fully give up, you will look back over time and look back at now and go, that was good times, or that was funny, or I learned some lessons. And if you have the right mindset about it, you don't look at it as with regret. I mean, that money I lost when I had that toy business, I don't look at that and go, wow, I wish I had that money. I do sometimes muse and think, instead of buying a business, I could have bought 10 houses out in Massey or something, and they would all be worth 3 times what they are now, and I would have made a lot more money. Is that a regret? No, it's just an observation, and I'm glad I learned that lesson about that business model, and now I know not to invest in that kind of business because that's not what I'm good at. So now I just do what I'm good at instead of trying to do something that I'm not good at, because there's lots more people that are good at that than I am.
Well, there's just some real special thoughts, Dominic. Thank you for adding so much value and experience, and I'm sure the people that are listening and watching have found it insightful, and I certainly have. I love the story, and I think, to be honest, you've gone through so much. And I'm sure we've only scratched the surface of what you've been doing. And it's just been, it's a pleasure to have you on, and I wish you all the best. There's so many more questions I had that I perhaps will leave it for maybe part 2 episodes or something. But thank you. Any final thoughts for our listeners, and especially when it comes to journaling and leaving notes? We did talk about it a little bit. People who underestimate the power of journaling and leaving notes. Maybe a final thought from you to them.
It's just challenge your own story and just think a little bit about things before you jump in, but you do need to jump in. What's the saying? You have to be in to win. So don't be afraid of the risk, just assess the risk is probably my best advice for anybody wanting to get into a business.
Final thoughts. Thank you. Awesome. I appreciate you. Until next time.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay.